Welcome to Swiftly Spoken, and welcome back to the second episode of our monthly celebration of Taylor Swift's studio albums. This month, we'll be speaking about her sophomore album, Fearless, revisiting every single song from the original album, the Platinum Edition, and the Vault tracks included on Taylor's version. To do so, we're going to be discussing interesting, curious, niche, or just fun facts for each and every track. As we know, Fearless is Taylor's second studio album, and it's one that had a profound effect on her career and set her on track to international stardom. One fact that the fandom always brags about is that Fearless is the most awarded country album ever, and this is true. It won every album award in the country music genre of its time. As for Grammy Awards, it won Album of the Year, Best Country Album, Best Country Song, and Best Country Performance. It also won the CMA Album of the Year Award, the ACM Album of the Year Award, and the AMA Favorite Country Album Award. This made Taylor the second country artist to ever win the three highest awards for a country album by the ACMs, the CMAs, and the Grammys. She was the second after the Chicks, who won prior to that in 1999 with Fly. And she was the first to also then go on to win the Grammy for Album of the Year for that very same album for Fearless. Just as we did last episode for debut, we're going to be going through each and every song from Fearless in order. As we know, Fearless is a hefty album because we have the original edition, then we have the Platinum edition, and then obviously we also have the Vault tracks included. So it's quite a long album, but we're going to go through every single song, giving one fun fact about each and every one. So kicking us off, we have the album opener, which is Fearless. Interestingly, the first time that Taylor ever played Fearless live was over a year and a half prior to the album's release, in April of 2007 at a concert at Sovereign Performing Arts Center in Reading, Pennsylvania. During her set, she played a number of covers, including, which is very typical for those days, Eminem's Lose Yourself, Beyonce's Irreplaceable, and Missing You with her opener Tyler Hilton. She then went on to play Sparks Fly for the first time, but this is not the performance that would be recorded and kind of like begins the whole long release journey of Sparks Fly. That was a different performance. This one didn't make it out there. In a review of the concert, it was revealed that the new songs that she sang went very well. Like, people were receiving them very well. So she took that into account when selecting which were going to be included on her next release, which at that point was her sophomore album, which at that point, again, wasn't known as Fearless, of course. Though she did play other unreleased songs, so she played Permanent Marker, I'd Lie, and Sparks Fly, and of course Fearless at that point. Only Fearless made the cut for her planned second album.
So next is obviously track 2, which is 15, and obviously this song was inspired by her friend Abigail Anderson, and Taylor wrote the song around the bridge lyric. Abigail gave everything she had to a boy who changed his mind. All these years later, the song has evolved, and it still holds a very special connection to both Taylor and Abigail. And interestingly, Taylor actually sung it at the Eras Tour on May 6th, 2023, with Abigail in attendance, with a slight lyric change, which was basically, back then I saw I was going to marry him someday, but I realised some bigger dreams of mine, and Abigail gave everything she had to a boy who changed his mind, and we both cried, and that's alright. The addition was obviously the and that's alright. Interestingly as well, talking about performances for 15, another notable performance is on the 51st Grammy Awards with no one other than Miley Cyrus. And though Taylor was not nominated, she obviously did perform with Miley for that Grammy Awards. It was then the Grammy Awards later, the year later, that Taylor would then kind of sweep with winning loads for Fearless. But yeah, that performance with Miley is a really, really good one. So if you haven't ever watched it, then definitely check it out.
Next up, of course, we have Love Story, and this is Taylor's most played song ever. So there's almost 650 recorded performances, but that doesn't include the remix versions, such as the one on the Rep Tour. So it means that probably she's performed it more like a total of over 700 times, which is absolutely crazy. And on top of that, it's the only song in her entire discography to have had a permanent space on every single official Taylor Swift tour set list, which is absolutely incredible. Taylor said it before, she will always perform this song. And it makes a lot of sense. This is like the biggest, or one of her biggest hits. It really put her name on the mark. So I think also fans still want to hear it.
Yeah, no, it's so loved, isn't it? It's just so fun. It's such a fun song, and I think I definitely remember an interview for like YouTube or something when she won lots of awards, like won loads of plaques and stuff for how many views she had. But I remember she said that it was in like the Red era, we're playing Love Story until she is no longer playing shows, and clearly she's kind of kept to that promise, because yeah, it is, you can expect it every time she performs. Like every time she's even done just like tiny little performances, she always pulls this one out because it's a crowd pleaser, and it is so good. What is funny though about Love Story is it's multiple like creation stories. You know, sometimes definitely at the start of Taylor's career, she said that basically it was like an argument with her parents where they weren't too fond of someone she was dating. She went off, half an hour later come back with a song, which was the story that I believe Andrea also used to kind of confirm. That was how it was created. And then suddenly around like the 1989 era, it was that she loved Romeo and Juliet so much but wanted them to have a happy ending. So Love Story has taken on all sorts of different
it's had a lot of lives.
Journeys, and it's had a lot of different, and even just like variations of how it's been performed, even with like the repertoire, like you said, of being mashed up with You Belong With Me, that totally
and the 1989ification of it,
the pop version. Yes.
And then it's also gone on to be like an engagement song for many, many people, which is also a fun little tradition.
Yes. Yeah, it's kind of had all sorts of weird and wonderful lives of its own. But yeah, no, it's always a stellar moment on any Taylor set list. So next is obviously Hey Stephen, and interestingly, the Stephen that Taylor is referring to in Hey Stephen is Stephen Lyles, a member of the band Love and Theft, which was interestingly also the secret message of the song. And in an interview for the New York Times, Taylor revealed that she messaged him not long after the release of Fearless saying, "Hey, track 5. And interestingly, this has multiple kind of interesting things, but in that interview she obviously says the wrong track number, because Hey Stephen is actually track 4. So this may have potentially been due to like track list changes. It might have originally been track 5 for a little bit and then was maybe changed later. As we know, things like Forever and Always were a last minute addition onto the Fearless track list, so potentially there was some movement around of songs and originally it was track 5 and moved to track 4. But what this also does potentially kind of allude to is the fact that the track 5 Taylor Swift thing, which is basically any song that is placed in track 5 has become on to be like the most vulnerable, most emotional song on that album, and it's obviously got a stellar lineup of, you know, All Too Wells and My Tears Ricochets and Cold As Used, but potentially this proves that definitely at the early stages, track 5's there was not an intentional reason for placement. It was merely a coincidence that then turned into something that then became a tradition. So that's an interesting point. But back onto Hey Stephen. Stephen then wrote a song in response called Try to Make It Anyway. The opening lyrics to Try to Make It Anyway are curly hair and the cowboy boots, how could anyone get over you? Which is obviously a direct response to Taylor at the time, who had big old curly hair and used to rock around in cowboy boots. So it's nice that he kind of wrote a song in response. But yeah, that was Hey Stephen.
For track 5, White Horse, we also have an interesting pre-release of Fearless story for it. So White Horse almost didn't make the cut for Fearless, as Taylor thought that she already had a lot of sad songs on the album, so she wasn't going to put it in it originally. However, the producers of Grey's Anatomy, which is Taylor's favourite TV show, heard the song and wanted to feature it on an episode. So it did end up being played on an episode that aired on September 26, 2008. And Taylor wrote a MySpace entry from September 2008 about the experience. And she basically went on like this third person narration of her describing like how much she loves Grey's Anatomy, how much she, you know, kind of like watched it all of the time, and like she couldn't stop crying when so and so died and this happened and that happened, whatever. So she was basically very, very excited that she was gonna have a song play on her favourite show, which of course is such an incredible experience. So in the MySpace entry, she did conclude it by saying, "Guys, I can't believe this. The song you'll hear on Grey's tomorrow night is called White Horse, and it's one of my favourites on the new album. It's a 2-hour premiere and I can't wait to see it." As you can see, there was a change in narrative between her not wanting it on the album because of too many sad songs, to it being put on Grey's and then being like, and it's on my new album, it's coming. So yeah, White Horse almost didn't make the cut,
which is mad because then White Horse then went on to win.
Yeah,
technically got Taylor's, if you count it in terms of like when she was physically awarded it, because it was in the pre-show, she then won the Grammy for White Horse. So White Horse was actually her first Grammy win, which is mad that would be a song that was potentially going to be, you know, something that might have appeared in Platinum Edition, might have even appeared on Taylor's version, you know what I mean, if it didn't make the cut.
Wow.
In the day, which is mad to think about, really. So next is obviously You Belong With Me, and for the Taylor's version release of Fearless, Taylor did lots of kind of very like quick little interviews, didn't she, for different radio stations. There was lots of like interesting ways you could find out, hear snippets of songs, find her talking about songs. I think you could ask Alexa for some stuff as well. While talking to the radio station about the upcoming release of Fearless, Taylor's version, she then spoke about You Belong With Me and basically said that it absolutely changed her life. It was one of those songs that she had written about unrequited love and crushes at school, and she would have never imagined how many people she would see in a crowd singing it one day, especially the lyric, obviously she wears short skirts, I wear t-shirts, and that there would be think pieces about it and that it would launch her and her career in a place that she just basically could never ever imagine. And she then obviously mentions it alongside Love Story about how those two songs just took over her life and just like made her career massive, and how fans still sing it to this day, and that her getting to go back in and redo the song was a really, really joyful experience, as it brought back all those memories and reminded her of how incredibly lucky she is, which is a really, really nice comment about You Belong With Me and the Fearless album itself.
And kind of like a silver lining to the whole Taylor's version recording process, like being able to recapture those happy memories once again.
Yes, and I think especially such early days on when she didn't know what the reception was going to be to the Fearless Taylor's version and just Taylor's versions in general. So it was nice that even before she kind of released it was a kind of happy, positive thing.
Next up we have Breathe, which is interesting because it's her first ever collaboration on her main discography. It's a feature and it features Colbie Caillat, and Taylor was very fond of Colbie's music and her debut album from 2007, Coco. She explained back in the day that when it came out she fell in love with it and she really enjoyed the way that Colbie made music. That is when the idea for a collaboration was sparked. And luckily enough, Colbie was available, and she said that she went to Nashville and she was able to write with Taylor, and they started this really beautiful, haunting song, and it's about having to let go and say goodbye to a really good friend. And after that, Colbie and Taylor did become friends. An interesting fact about this song is that it was nominated for the Grammy Award for Best Pop Collaboration with Vocals, but it lost to Jason Mraz and Colbie Caillat's song Lucky. So Colbie lost, but she won.
She was all over it that year.
Of course, Colbie returned for Taylor's version, which was so good to see because, again, like we just said, this was the first Taylor's version, so it must have been a relief for Taylor to see that people were on board with it and wanted to come back. And about that, she also spoke about it and she said that she was honoured that Taylor had asked her to be part of it again. And for her, it was an instant yes. Colbie went on to say that I had so much respect for her. I think the song that we did, it was a really special thing. She was writing about something she was going through with a band member at the time, and she was pouring her heart out about it. Taylor then went on to tell iHeartRadio in another snippet, I'm so lucky because Colbie agreed to do the same backup vocals in my version of Breathe. So it absolutely would not have been the same without her. I'm really, really grateful that she decided to return to the project.
So next is Tell Me Why, and Taylor revealed that the idea for this song came from her ranting about someone she was seeing at the time and speaking about how basically she was sick of their attitude and how they treated her. And basically from there she began to kind of make her complaints into a song. And what's interesting is that if the story behind the song does sound a little bit similar, that's also because this is similar to how she created We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together, because she was in the studio for that song and was kind of ranting and raving after meeting her ex's friend, who kind of walked into the studio and was like, are you and blah 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 going to get back together? And then once he left the room, to Max Martin and Shellback, she was like, we are never ever getting back together, and they're like, they stopped what they were actually writing and then wrote We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together. And that's also similar to how Tell Me Why came about, with her kind of ranting and raving about someone and then it turning into a song.
Next up we have You're Not Sorry, and You're Not Sorry was first released as a promotional single from Fearless on October 28th, 2008 as part of Countdown to Fearless, which was a campaign by the iTunes store which they released a few of the Fearless songs before the release of the whole album just to get people interested as promotional singles. But the song was then also reissued on March 5th, 2009 as a remix, and that was the very same day that Taylor made her guest appearance on the television series CSI Crime Scene Investigation. It was in the episode Turn, 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 and the remix was actually featured in the episode, so it all tied together.
Yeah, if you definitely haven't listened to the You're Not Sorry CSI remix, definitely give it a listen. It's an interesting remix. It's definitely not the best, but it's also definitely not her worst. It is a bit rogue. I guess it's kind of a bit more like poppy. It does sound a bit like Crime Scene-y, doesn't it? Of
it's a bit more drama because it's on a television show which is quite drama based and very and her character was very troubled, so it makes sense.
Yes, but yeah, definitely give it a listen if you haven't heard it. It's not one to write home about. It's nothing wild. So next is a song, The Way I Loved You, and its hidden message in the CD booklet was We Can't Go Back. And interestingly, this song was a main part of the Fearless tour setlist, even though it was not featured, obviously, in the Journey to Fearless movie, DVD, and sadly it never made any other main set list, but was sung as a surprise song at the Eras tour in Lisbon, and was mashed alongside Come Back Be Here and The Other Side of the Door, and that was on May 24th, 2024.
As for Forever and Always, this song was a last-minute addition to Fearless, and for a long time, Fearless had been an 11-song track list, but 2 weeks before the album had to be turned in, Taylor decided to add 2 songs to the album. One of them was The Way I Loved You, and the other one was one that she was just about to write, which was Forever and Always, and she decided to include it. On her MySpace, she wrote, "I recorded a new song the other day for Fearless. I think it's fun to put yourself under crazy pressure to finish a song by a certain deadline. That's what I did with this song, and that makes 13 songs on the new album." She said that basically she was asking if there was any way that she could get an emergency recording session in time to be able to record this new song. Luckily, though, she says that my record label president took a deep breath and said, "Yes, I guess you can do that." But she did make it in time, as we know. And then she also went on to include a piano mix of the song, which completely changes the vibe of it, for the Platinum Edition.
So next is track 12, which is The Best Day, and Taylor wrote this song without telling her mother and decided to create a slideshow music video with touching family videos and give to Andrea for Christmas, and obviously her mother was very, very touched. And ever since, the song has been linked to Mother's Day, and often Taylor will play it on tour around that holiday and will dedicate it to her mum. This song is one of my all-time favourites. It always makes me well up. It's so lovely. The original music video, even the Taylor's version music video, I couldn't imagine Andrea's reaction when she was kind of first played this song. And whenever Taylor plays it around Mother's Day as well, it's also really touching. So yeah, The Best Day is definitely one of my favourites on Fearless.
Finally, we reach track 13, which is the closing track of the original version of Fearless, and that is Change. Change is yet another Fearless song that has a bit of a history beyond the album, because it can be traced back to the summertime of 2008. NBC had approached Taylor wanting her to perform at the Olympics in China. However, Taylor was touring and she wouldn't be able to make an appearance. So instead, her dad, Scott, suggested that Change be used as a theme for the games. In a MySpace post from July of 2008, Taylor reveals that while it's not the first single off her sophomore album, it would be featured at the Olympics. So if we think about it, all of these tracks that we've discussed being released prior to Fearless, she was very adamant, this isn't the first single,
Yeah.
But she's releasing them because
how many kept dropping.
Exactly,
yeah.
Because people kept asking for different things for different, events and stuff, and lots came out really before. But anyway, going back to Change, she said that lately we've been playing a new song, Change, in our set. It's not the first single off album 2, but it's being featured in the Olympics in the next few weeks. So we made a little music video for it that will play at the end of the Olympics. I'm so excited to see that. It would then go on to be included as the second track on the AT&T Team USA soundtrack, which was a compilation album released on the 7th of August 2008. And finally, it was originally set to be track 1 on Fearless, but it later got moved around, and it is the closing track of Fearless. Can you imagine a world in which Change is track 1?
Change was the opener, yeah, no way, because Fearless opens so well on the song Fearless.
Yes,
and I think
ends
so
really
well
well
on the song
with Change. Yeah.
Change is a good ending. Imagine starting the album there. It would be weird. Yeah, no, I'm very glad that got moved to track 13. It feels like a closer. It's
really
clean.
does.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Imagine opening 1989 with clean.
It just works as just set a little goodbye.
So obviously next we're now going to move into the Platinum Edition songs of Fearless, and the Platinum Edition of Fearless was released in October of 2009, and it added 6 songs as a way to celebrate Fearless becoming platinum, which is basically when an album sells 1 million copies. So 4 of the 6 songs were held back from the original Fearless, making them, I guess, the first ever vault tracks to technically be released, though obviously they were under very, very different circumstances to the current reason why vault tracks are added to albums. The other 2 songs were an alternative cover version, which we mentioned earlier, which was Forever and Always, and obviously a cover, which we will get into.
The Platinum Edition's first track is Jump Then Fall, and this made its way to the Platinum Edition of Fearless, but its journey did not end there, because when Taylor appeared in the film Valentine's Day in 2010, which we'll be speaking about in a little bit, a couple of her songs were featured on the official tracklist, and one was a new release, while the other was Jump Then Fall, and it was the 13th song on the album, of course. Another fun fact about Jump Then Fall is that I was able to see this live, which is so incredibly crazy, because Fearless Platinum Edition songs are rarely played We're going to get into it.
I know.
So to be able to hear it, obviously I heard it mashed up with our song. So that was incredible just on its own. And it was just such a, like, I was so wired in that moment. I didn't know what song I was singing, but it just like came naturally that I was singing it. And everyone was like, wait, what's going on? And I was just like,
yeah,
drop the ball.
Drop the ball. Yeah.
But,
no,
yeah,
I'm
very
so
exciting.
jealous. As you know, and I'm sure some of our kind of long-time listeners know,
You're
love
a big fan.
the Platinum Edition of Fearless. And it would be a dream to hear one of these songs live. So no, I'm very, very jealous because that is, for me, is massive to hear one of those songs. And what's also interesting about the Platinum Edition, unlike other deluxe editions of albums, where the deluxe songs, and in this case the Platinum Edition songs, are kind of tacked onto the end of an album, the Platinum Editions are actually put at the start, which I always found really interesting.
Yeah.
It totally changed up the track list.
Yeah, this is the opener. It is kind of weird to see that, but yeah, definitely.
So next is Untouchable, and this is the longest song on Fearless, ranking in at 5 minutes and 12 seconds, and is a stripped country cover of the rock band Lunar Halo's track. And Taylor first covered the song during her stripped Raw and Real TV performance, which was released in February of 2009, and it was basically a surprise for Scott Prosciutto, who was a massive fan of the band and had given her their CD. And basically, after the massive success and reaction from fans of the cover, she decided to then add it to Fearless Platinum Edition. Basically, her changes were so prominent that the band actually gave her writing credits. And in an interview with one of the band members, they were asked about how Taylor changed the melody of the song and what they think about it. And he said that basically she changed the verses quite a bit. The chorus is still pretty true to what it was, but when he first heard it, apparently it totally caught him off guard because he didn't even recognise the melody of the verse. And some of the arrangements, and that they gave her writing credit because she had generally changed it significantly. And what's really interesting is if you do listen to that original and Taylor's, it sounds totally different. Like, they don't even, the fact that Taylor could hear that song and then turn it into what she did.
Every so often, like, people will rediscover that this is a cover, and then they'll listen to the original and then be like, oh my god, it's so different, because obviously they are a rock band, right? And she's turning it into this, and she's turning this into this like ballady, very whimsical country song, complete, like you said, how she could listen to that and be like, no, I know how I'm going to do this. I love things like that.
Yeah, me too. And Taylor is always very good with covers. She always kind of takes them on and makes them her own songs. But talking about the differences, a really interesting rearrangement and slight word change is this bit that I'm about to run through. And basically in the original, one of the lyrics is, in the dead of night, I wake up from this dream. I want to feel you in the dark, lying next to me. You've got to come on, say that we'll be together. Come on, little taste of heaven. Taylor then changed it. Instead of being in the dead of night, she changed it to, in the middle of the night, waking from this dream. I want to feel you by my side, standing next to me. The original was, I want to feel you in the dark, lying next to me. You've got to come on, say that we'll be together. Come on, little taste of heaven. And what's really interesting is she does Swiftify it.
Oh yeah.
Middle of the night is very a kind of
very
thing
Swiftian.
to say. I want to feel you by my side, standing next to me. Whereas the original is a bit more rock sounding, like dead of night, dark, lying next to me. You know what I mean? Taylor
That's
does
true.
definitely lighten it up.
Also a little bit more tame, considering we are in the Fearless era. You know, we don't want to say we're lying next to anyone. Come on now.
Yes.
This is like tame Taylor era. She is America's sweetheart. You know, we don't want to...
Yeah.
Behind the scenes, perhaps she's writing songs that are a bit different, which we'll discover in Vaults. Exactly. But, you know, public facing, these are the kind of like little changes that just show you kind of like how her image was being curated as well. But very Swiftian, like you said.
Yes, definitely.
Next we have Come In With The Rain, which again has a curiously long story behind it. It spans in time almost 20 years from the moment it was written to the first time it was ever performed. So it's the oldest track to make it onto the Platinum edition of Fearless, because it was written before any of the other 13 tracks released on the original version of Fearless as well. It dates as far back as September 2006, which was when she recorded an acoustic demo version. Later she also released a mix of the song onto her MySpace prior to the release of Debut. So that's how long this song has been floating around. The song must have also stuck in Taylor's head because she doodled lyrics to it which were included in the Lover Diaries, which are dated the 12th of October 2006. However, it didn't make it onto the original release of Fearless, of course. Come In With The Rain finally did see an official release on the Platinum edition, but Taylor never performed it live until almost 18 years later, after first being written, and 16 years after it was finally released on February the 10th, 2024 in Tokyo. And before playing it, she said, "I'm pretty sure I've never performed this one live. It's one of my favourites and it's from Fearless. It's called Coming With The Rain." So again, these platinum songs, they haven't had live performances.
They rarely see the light of day.
Wow.
Yes, I think because of when they were released like post Fearless tour. You know, the lead up to kind of Speak Now, they weren't really given much of like a light, because then, you know, she was gearing up
for Speak Now.
Which then obviously those songs then kind of took precedent. So it meant that they kind of got lost in the kind of, you know, the kind of spiraling down of the Fearless promotion, and then the kind of ramping up of the Speak Now one. That they just never really saw the light of day. And surprise songs, even though they were a thing on the Reputation Stadium tour, the Reputation Stadium tour was not as long. It was only one tour. There wasn't really rules of like repeating stuff or trying to delve back into one song. Sorry, it was only one song per night, and there wasn't like trying to massively delve back into like her deep and darkest discography. So it's so nice that the Eras tour gave moments to these songs that, you know, fans have wanted to hear for so long. So next is the track Superstar, and this is definitely, personally, in my opinion, a massive underrated gem from the Fearless Platinum Edition, as similarly Taylor had also never performed this live until last year at the Eras Tour. So after 15 years since its release, Taylor performed it for the first time at her first night in Germany on July 17th, 2024, and she remixed this song with Invisible String, and she played that on the guitar.
Next up, we have The Other Side of the Door, which, again, following a similar pattern here, Taylor first performed The Other Side of the Door during the Eras tour once again, 14 years after its release. It was the first surprise song during her show on April 28, 2023 in Atlanta. She introduced it by saying, "I remember when I wrote this and I was so obsessed with this sort of rant that I put at the end of this song. I don't think I ever got to perform it live, and even if I did, it was not enough times. So I'd really love to play this song. It's called The Other Side of the Door." And the outro, the ranty outro as Taylor described it, is a fan favourite, to be quite honest with you. Like, a lot of people really, really love that outro. I get it. It's just so catchy.
This is one of my favourites on Fearless / all-time Taylor Swift discography. I love
it's a good
this
one.
song.
She also performed it again on February 17th, 2024, and this time it was in Melbourne, and it was part of the tour's first ever triple mashup, because it mashed together Getaway Car and August, and of course The Other Side of the Door. And then, once again, she mashed it up on another triple mashup, again in Lisbon, which she mashed it up with The Way I Loved You and Come Back Be Here.
So next is Today Was a Fairytale. And although Today Was Fairytale was written by Taylor in the summer of 2008, it did not make the cut onto Fearless. But after she was cast as Felicity Miller for the film Valentine's Day, she offered the song for the soundtrack, because basically she didn't think it was going to fit on Speak Now, and saw it as a perfect opportunity to release the song. And she basically said, "When this movie was coming about, I reached back into my pocket and thought, I think this is perfect for the soundtrack. I hope it's perfect for the soundtrack." Released as a single in Jan of 2010, it then went on again in Feb 2011 to have like more of a country mix, but it finally found its home on Fearless TV after being a little bit homeless. And I'm really glad that it did make it onto Fearless, because for me this song has always kind of felt like a Fearless track, and fits right at home with the kind of fairy tale
vibe,
lovey-dovey vibes of certain songs of Fearless. So, you know, it definitely fits, and I'm really glad that it was given a Taylor's version treatment and actually has a home.
And that leads us on to the Vault tracks. So of course these were added many years after the fact. Some of them we knew of, some of them we didn't. We'll be getting into that. Officially they were released in 2021, although of course they are part of the Fearless era and now Fearless Taylor's version. So the first up is You All Over Me, which is another feature. It's featuring Maren Morris, and it was originally written in 2005, and for a long time fans only knew about this song through a write-up that was made by the infamous Taylor's Inner Circle, who compared this song to both All Too Well and Clean. So, you know, they were putting it on a pedestal.
They were setting it up. That is the same as lyrics that cut through glass. They were setting that up.
A little bit, yeah. Eventually, a demo did leak in 2017. So we had heard of it, or some you know, portion of the fandom might have heard of it before it released officially in 2021. But when it did release, it saw the light with Maren Morris included, added as a feature, as backing vocals. She's there. She's there,
yes,
more or less.
Unfortunately, she was also given the kind of Chris Stapleton.
Yeah.
Kobe Calais treatment of, unfortunately backing vocals. But Marion did go on to perform it with Taylor at the Eras tour and did have a bit more of a kind of feature and is a really, really, really cool version of the song. So at least you kind of got to have a little bit more on the live version.
Yeah.
Next up is Mr. Perfectly Fine, and this song is the only song on Fearless to have been written after the release of the original album, and basically a MySpace post potentially confirms when it was written and when it was originally from. So March 19th of 2009, Taylor wrote, "I've been in the studio all day. I know. We just put out a new album. I think I have a problem. I cannot stop writing songs." And as I said earlier, during the release of Fearless Taylor's version, all these different kind of audio snippets of Taylor talking about a variety of different songs. One of the ones that was on Alexa, Taylor said that Mr. Perfectly Fine was definitely an early indicator of me sort of creeping towards more of a pop sensibility, and she basically said that she's always listened to every type of music, and even though Fearless is a country album, there's always been pop melodies that crept in. But she basically said that she really loves the song, loves the bridge, and she thinks the lyrics are just wonderfully scathing and full of teen angst that you would hope to hear on an album that she wrote when she was 17/18, and she just basically loves and knows how chaotic it is.
Next up is We Were Happy, and we're going from the last song really written to be then featured on Fearless to one of the earliest songs written, and this one was written with Liz Rose way back in 2005. And we did know of this song before it eventually was included in Taylor's version of Fearless, because it was available as 2 different demos that leaked over time. One included a piano demo, which was very like haunting, and it was pretty similar to what we got in the official release, to be quite honest.
I much preferred the kind of more upbeat version, I can't lie.
Oh, okay.
I preferred that version of the...
All right, okay. I always preferred the other one, so there you go. An interesting fact on this one is that Keith Urban sings harmonies, but is not officially deemed as a collaboration. Although he does appear, you can hear him, sometimes a little bit more than other features.
From one Keith Urban unofficial feature to a official feature is... Next on the list is That's When, and as I said, it's a Keith Urban feature, and basically he was in the food court in a mall when he received a text from Taylor in December of 2020 while doing his Christmas shopping, and basically she had sent him a couple of songs to sing on, and he sat there and listened to the songs that she had sent to him, which is wild. Like the fact that, imagine being like...
These songs have been guarded.
And Taylor Swift sends you 2 unreleased tracks, like We Were Happy and That's When. And obviously Keith, I'm guessing, wasn't overly in the lore of unreleased Taylor Swift songs, so wouldn't have known about these songs. But if she sent them to me, I'd be like, yeah, babe, I've heard those for years. But still, mad. Imagine getting that. But then what's really interesting is if you do listen to that original demo of That's When, and then obviously the released Taylor's version with Keith on it, the lyrics were totally changed a little bit, and the perspective has changed, and it was changed into more of a duet with a bit more of a back and forward, which Keith was kind of involved in. But yeah, wild that you could just get pinged an unreleased Taylor Swift song out of the blue. I guess a bit like when the same thing kind of happened with Phoebe Bridgers. Next
up we have Don't You, which had never leaked. But the Inner Circle did have 3 demos, and this is how they described them. So they said it was a melancholy piano demo with haunting vocals that have a sadness and longing to them. This was likely recorded in 2005 and was probably considered for the first album. Taylor runs into her ex and feels pain because it brings back so many hurt feelings and sad emotions. She feels that she still loves him and wonders why he doesn't feel the same way. She will try her best to go on with her life. Note, in addition to our piano demo with Taylor on vocals, we also have 2 studio recordings, 1 guitar-based and 1 piano-based with non-Taylor vocals. And these are the songs that I'm so glad we've got on Taylor's version. Yes. Like, I'm so glad that the gatekeepers of it all, who, you know, I don't know how they got these songs originally, which is also, you know, a world unto its own. Yeah. So I'm glad that we get them officially in the end, because obviously everyone wanted to hear this. When you describe it in such a way, like, a lot of times the Inner Circle did describe songs that nobody else had in such, like...
It was so baity, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was
over
like,
the top.
It's like All Too Well and Clean. Like,
exactly.
2 massive fan favorites.
Yeah.
Or like, this is the best song that Taylor's
Nashville.
ever written. It's like, get a grip.
Yeah.
I mean, like, come on.
Feel like this rivals some of her best songwriting.
Exactly. But what is really interesting is whenever they do describe something, they often weirdly reword the lyrics.
that is why I love to read these old posts that we have, that obviously the Inner Circle's website does not exist anymore, but sometimes we have the remnants of a few of the descriptions of songs that they did have that nobody else had. And some of them, like this one, you can really see that because it's literally describing the chorus.
She will try her best to go on with her life.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's and the funniest one for me is, I believe, some of the red ones, like I Bet You Think About Me, is basically like totally reworded the actual lyrics, so they're also really interesting now to kind of reflect back on, and actually how much we did potentially know about the songs without realizing. But finally, track 26 to finish out the Fearless standard, platinum and Taylor's version is Bye Bye Baby, and this was previously known in the fandom as either The One Thing or One Thing, and the original was leaked in 2010. The lyrics, similarly to That's When, also changed so much that the song does not feature the name that it was believed to have had. The original chorus was, I want you bad, but it's coming down to nothing, and all you have is to walk away from the one thing I thought would never leave me. And then the obviously released Taylor's version was, I want you bad, but it's coming down to nothing, and all I have is your sympathy, because you took me home, but you couldn't keep me. To this day, I'll never understand what the reasoning was behind the lyric changes, whether this was potentially a change that maybe the one thing that we know that was originally leaked was maybe an original demo version that, say in 2010, had multiple lyric changes that then led it to the Bye Bye Baby that was then released, or whether Bye Bye Baby was actually changed around the time of re-recording. What do you think?
It's a big debate, isn't it? Like, when did these lyrics come about? Because obviously there's some other songs that we have the original of, or we, something has made its way from back in the day, and we can compare them with the official releases, and they are like exactly the same. Carbon copies.
Pretty similar.
Yeah. We Were Happy, also, like we said, pretty similar. But Bye Bye Baby and That's When makes sense because she was shifting it to have a different perspective of the song, and she quite clearly says that in a lot of the little snippets that we get. But with Bye Bye Baby, there is no recognition of the one thing ever being a thing. So I know that a lot of fans were not very happy because you get used to things, right? You get used to things, even though they're unofficial. You get used to ideas in your head about, these songs. I don't know. I think perhaps over time.
Also, for this one, this one's weird because for me, this one, the additional lyrics do sound a lot more like maturer Taylor.
Right.
And I don't know if maybe it would have been something that 18-year-old Taylor would have said.
I think also the vocabulary, if you look at the opening parts where she talks about the pages slipping away, it does feel like the song has changed.
Folklore, like very folklore.
Exactly.
It has that vibe.
It does that. I don't know. And that, I don't know, it also kind of reminds me of the whole Masters situation. You can see it from that perspective instead of like a lover leaving. So I don't know exactly when they changed, whether they changed for better or not. I'm actually more of a fan of Bye Bye Baby. I know I've sat with it now for another, 4 years. So things have changed since then. And I haven't really listened to the one thing or whatever for a very long time. So either way, I don't feel the loss personally, but I understand if people do.
I wasn't the biggest fan of
Right, okay. Yeah.
And I'm also not the biggest fan of Bye Bye Baby. So
oh, that's a shame.
Fuss about either.
Yeah, I get that though. I'm not, to be honest. It's not my favourite, but yeah.
It's quite cool, I think, actually, to have different versions because
I love it that it was changed, to be honest with you. I love to see all these intricacies of the creation and the release of different songs. Yeah. As a bonus, final bit of a fact and trivia, just because this one grinds my gears, you know that I don't like things being completed, and Taylor went on about like, I'm gonna sing every song from my discography if I can at the Eras tour, and she did a very good job. Props to her, she did a very, very good job. But there's 2 songs from Fearless that were never sung live, and that is That's When and Bye Bye Baby, and Keith Urban was there. Please.
Yes, I know. And another thing that also we can add on is there is also technically an unofficial 27th track for Fearless, which is obviously, if this was a movie, which was tacked on as part of the kind of more versions, More Red, More Lover, More Fearless, which was obviously originally, the fun fact of this one is that it was originally on Speak Now.
Yeah.
And was a deluxe track on Speak Now, and now is kind of this homeless, streaming only track, which is a real shame, I think, because that was, I don't know, it's just a shame that it's kind of was shoved onto Fearless, but not properly. I would have preferred it if it was just put on there at the time of Fearless,
right,
when Fearless Taylorsville was released.
Because instead we do have a 27th track, which is the love story Elvira's remix.
Yes, I've forgotten about that.
Another
well.
extra
Absolute
fact.
Monstrosity.
Another extra fact here at the end.
Which was also weirdly to kind of, I feel like that was to kind of like
boost,
silence the kind of like the versions, but also to silence what Big Machine was doing at the time of the Fearless Taylor's version release, where they were like re-releasing weird and wonderful remixes. Was it the Digital Dog?
Yeah.
Oh god, Digital Dog version of Love Story.
And with that, we've come to the end of one fact about every single song on Fearless Taylor's version, which means that there were quite a few songs, and I'm scared when we get to Red Taylor's version because that is a hefty album.
Yes.
But before that, we'll have Speak Now next month, Red the month after, and so on and so forth. If you do enjoy this series, then make sure you subscribe here on YouTube, and also like the episode. If you enjoyed these facts, let us know. Did you know all of these facts? Were there some that surprised you? Or do you know any fun facts that you'd like to, let everyone else know about any of the songs from Fearless? Let us know in the comments below. And also, like I said, like this video if you did enjoy it. Also, if you want to keep up to date with everything that we have going on, then you can follow us over on Instagram. Our handle is @SwiftlySpokenPodcast. If you are listening on an audio-only platform like Spotify or Apple Music, make sure you do rate us if you enjoyed. And until next time, we will see you very, very soon with more facts.